We have a ton of news about the fourth stimulus check, Social Security benefits, SSI and SSDI. A ton of news about the fourth stimulus payments are coming in. I have a lot of information that I'm going to share with you guys today in this video, so continue watching. The several lawmakers, everybody in Congress, have discussed new inflation relief checks for the people. So if you reside in states like Minnesota or Massachusetts, well, you may qualify for at least another stimulus check this year. It comes as budgets are being finalized, states are planning to use the budget surpluses for another round of checks. So a lot of good things are happening in Congress, and a lot of stimulus payments can actually be sent out faster than we ever thought in the history of our lives. So as I was saying, it's official. The governor in several states like Minnesota have actually hoped to include a tax rebate in the state's upcoming budget. It comes from the announcements of the state's budget. It's set to go for January 24. And according to the Associated Press, well, the budget will propose indexing state aid for school districts just to help combat inflation. So Waltz has told reporters that I think people are feeling inflation. Even though it might be cooling a little bit, there's a slight sense of urgency among people to get something done. And that's good here. Something should be done because the Governor Waltz's original pitch for the tax rebates has been quite generous for a lot of people. It gives single filers, for instance, a lot of breathing room, a lot of time to just think about what they can do, and now the government has already signed them into a second term. So, though not all of these fellow lawmakers share the priorities, though, because the House Speaker and Majority Leader claimed they wanted to prioritize tax credits for families, giving the families $3,000 for every child 5 or younger, with a cap of $7,500. Even the Massachusetts governor and top lawmakers signaled that a clear picture of potential tax relief may not even emerge until at least the end of January, when a key final metric is actually heard of. So one governor, for instance, said their teams are working closely through numbers and evaluating what's possible. They said that we told reporters how important it is to make sure that we're doing everything we can for the residents of the state. And Healy on the campaign trail had vowed to make progressive permanent tax relief her day one priority. She also had largely echoed support for the now former governor Charlie Baker's sweeping tax cut proposal last year. And low, middle, and income residents have all received some stimulus payments just to stop the crying at least. But now the IRS said it recently finished correcting tax returns, filing that for 2020. And so the IRS said, folks, that the average tax refund is around $1,200, with tax agencies sending a total of $15 billion back to the taxpayers. So while taxpayers were sent letters from the IRS just to inform them about the fixes to the 2020 tax filings, well, tax review came due to the American Rescue Plan. It was signed by Joe Biden, we all know that, and because the IRS, it reviewed returns filed by workers and even other people who have jobless aid as income. So the IRS told CNBC that some taxpayers received refunds, while others received overpayment applied due to taxes or other debts. In some cases, the exclusion only resulted in a reduction in their adjusted gross income. But now we know that about 14 million tax returns were corrected. The IRS issued refunds for 12 million of those filings. It added individuals, married couples whose adjusted gross income was below 150 grand, or who were eligible to see unemployment and aid untaxed. According to the IRS, it has now finished corrections, everybody. Though it has added taxpayers who are eligible for the exclusion and who haven't gotten a correction from the IRS. Well, they need to be amended very quick, or else you won't get that stimulus cash that people need. Wow, we have a ton of news about the fourth stimulus check, Social Security benefits, SSI, SSDI, and I want to go over some very important notes that I have about the fourth stimulus payment and what Joe Biden should do about this fourth stimulus check and what he's going to do now very soon.
Hey everyone, today we honor the legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. King was a prophet. He saw the future as it could be, a future of equity, justice, and opportunity for all. Dr. King saw the connection between racial injustice and economic injustice, and he knew that to effectively address either injustice, our nation would have to address both. Together, in the spirit of the fight for freedom and equality, let us stand together to end the epidemic of violence and hate in our communities. Let us advance workers' rights and economic dignity. Let us continue to protect and strengthen our most sacred freedoms, the freedom to organize, the freedom to worship, the freedom to make decisions about one's own body.
Now, Chuck Schumer and Manchin are holding meetings on how to move forward with President Biden's Build Back Better bill. Schumer has announced that the bill will be passed very soon. However, there will be some adjustments to the finalized version of the bill. Watch to the end to find out how to receive your fourth stimulus check. Schumer has said that he and other centrist Democrats like Manchin had discussed moving a bill that would unwind parts of the Republican tax law enacted when the former president was in office. The good news is that Schumer has confirmed that the bill could be passed in just a few weeks. The goal is to ease inflation, which is badly hurting economies, and President Biden's approval ratings. Democrats are eyeing a fast-track budget process that would bypass the need for 60 votes in the Senate necessary to overcome a Republican filibuster. Schumer told reporters today, "Look, reconciliation is very, very important, and I met with Manchin this morning. Our meetings were both preliminary and good, and we're going to continue to keep talking." Schumer added to reporters, "If you want to get rid of inflation, the only way to do it is to undo a lot of the former president's tax cuts and raise rates. No Republican is ever going to do that, so the only way to get rid of inflation is through reconciliation." Manchin of West Virginia, who played a key role in stalling the Democrats' sweeping spending bill, cited concerns about its impact on national debt and deficit. After today, meetings with Schumer, Manchin told reporters, "We talked about the tax code and doing something to combat inflation. He's just as concerned about inflation as I am. Reconciliation to me is about getting inflation under control, paying down debt, and getting a handle on what's going on." The West Virginia Democrat voiced an interest in potentially raising the corporate tax rate to 25% and the capital gains rate tax to 28%. To pass the reconciliation bill, Schumer would actually need to keep his entire caucus together, due to the evenly split margins in the Senate. It's unclear if centrist Democrat Kyrsten Sinema of Arizona, who also played a big role in Build Back Better legislation, is open to negotiations. Schumer has also said that today that President Biden is getting closer to canceling up to $50,000 in student loan debt for borrowers through executive action. During a speech on the Senate floor, Schumer said, "I'll keep urging the president to take this action, an important step. And I say to my colleagues, I think the president is moving in my direction. My talks with him and his staff have been getting very fruitful over the last little while, and I'm hopeful that we will do the right thing together." Now, the Biden administration extended the moratorium on federal student loan payments earlier this month, through the end of August. According to the Department of Education, a total of 43 million Americans owe a total of about $1.75 trillion in student loan debt. That's a number that has nearly doubled in the past decade. The progressive wing of the Democratic Party started pressuring Biden in the first weeks of his presidency to take executive action to cancel $50,000 in student loan debt, but President Biden shot down the proposal last year. With Schumer's optimism Wednesday, though, the president can move on his student debt ahead of the midterm elections this year. Jen Psaki actually told reporters the president has been considering and looking at options for how to provide more relief to students across the country. Meanwhile, Republicans have been united in their opposition to any student debt forgiveness. The GOP senators introduced an act that would actually end the suspension of repayments and prevent the president from canceling student debt. Senate Republican Mike Braun said in an official statement this week that the majority of Americans do not have college degrees, and this transfer of wealth is not a move to advance equity, but rather a taxpayer handout to appease activists.